start in St Petersburg on the second and the final day of what's looking like a very grumpy G20 summit. The annual meeting of the leaders of the world's top 20 economies is always supposed to be talking about the global economy and big issues like tax avoidance, but disagreements over what to do about Syria are now overshadowing the meeting.
They have very different views on the crucial issue of the day. So when the host of the G20 summit, Vladimir Putin, met his guest, Barack Obama, everyone studied the body language looking for clues. Polite, friendly enough, but maybe it could have been warmer. On Syria, these two are far apart. In his opening remarks, President Putin stuck to the formal summit agenda and spoke about the global economy.
I think our joint recognition that the use of chemical weapons in Syria is not only a tragedy, but also a violation of international law that must be addressed.
He began with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
I certainly look forward to continuously and closely working with you to improve the situation on the ground.
But administration officials admit they don't anticipate that every member of the G20 will agree with Obama, particularly given Putin's objection to any military action without approval from the United Nations Security Council. Case in point, the British Prime Minister supports military action against the Assad regime, but failed to get Parliament's support. Obama does have backing from France, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Germany's Prime Minister Angela Merkel, in the midst of her election campaign, says she wants a green light from the UN before any military action.
We have made clear that we won't take part in the military actions against Syria, but we are happy to provide humanitarian aid or political support.
Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes says the president will explain our current thinking to allies and partners and explore what kinds of political and diplomatic support they can offer.
The handshake between David Cameron and Vladimir Putin was not the warmest at this summit. The two men don't see eye to eye on a host of issues, but nor have they yet descended to the Arctic level of US-Russia exchanges. The hosts pulled out all the stops with a sound and light show stretching into the small hours. After this spectacle, the Russian president found time to meet David Cameron, who once helped to facilitate humanitarian aid in Syria.
China is very concerned about the impact it might have on the global economy, especially given that its own developing economy is starting to falter. And what they're worried about is that any US military action, not sanctioned by the United Nations, that's for certain, will cause a massive spike in fuel prices, and that's the last thing that China wants at this point in time. But also what we're starting to see here is a shifting of the power as such, a shifting of the plates, where the Russians and the Chinese and other BRICS countries are now starting to sort of shore up a stronger alignment when it comes to international issues. And of course then on the other side you've got the US and just France at this point. So it will be an interesting 24 hours to watch, especially given that President Obama does seem to be at this stage pretty isolated.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin has rejected accusations Russia gave chemical weapons assistance to Syria. After I heard the Pentagon chief said Russia supplied chemical weapons to Syria, then he corrected himself, saying it was not chemical weapons, but the means for their development and production. This, I apologize if I lose my temper, is rubbish, sheer rubbish. In Lithuania, EU defence ministers met on Thursday to try to work out a common stance over Syria. Catherine Ashton, the EU chief of diplomacy, didn't directly blame President Assad for the chemical attacks of August the 21st.
I've not heard anyone say to me, this hasn't been a chemical attack. I've been talking with different countries, some of whom may take a different view of who the perpetrator was, but nobody's arguing the question.
US Secretary John Kerry is due to arrive in Lithuania on Saturday to push for a tougher stance against Assad from his EU counterparts.
Russia has also sent vessels to the region. On Thursday, 3 Russian warships were seen heading for the Mediterranean through the Bosporus Strait. Russia always has 4 naval vessels stationed in the waters of Syria and is planning to send 3 more. The Russian government says they'll be used to help evacuate Russian citizens from Syria if the U.S. attacks.
Foreign Minister Muallim of Syria is coming to Moscow next Monday. He's going to meet with the Russian foreign minister. This is a long relationship going back decades of cooperation between Russia and Syria, and obviously the Russians have been very reluctant. They've been, indeed, have not thrown Assad under the bus. They've been continued to provide him with arms, with funding, and with political cover by vetoing any measures of pressure against him in the United Nations Security Council. It will be very interesting to see what happens on Monday's meeting. At this point, the Russians have shown no indication that they're willing to change their policy. In fact, they're doubling down on it and insisting that foreign intervention in Syria will only lead to further instability in the country and in the region.